Over the past few weeks here at Exponential, we've been sharing a fresh take on a familiar carol, the First Noel. And it's a version that Life.Church does. It adds a nice chorus into it that gives it a little more zing. And, I've always liked the First Noel. I appreciate the warmth it has and just the Christmas feel of it. I like that it includes the shepherds from the Gospel of Luke and the wise men from the Gospel of Matthew. But I have something to confess because, I've been doing Noel songs for years as a musician, but I never really stopped to think about what the word actually meant. Like, I knew it was something like Christmassy or something, but I never really took the time to figure it out. So in researching the First Noel, I discovered that the word is actually an English, well, it's a French word that the English have borrowed. And it's the French word for Christmas. If you would say Happy Christmas in French, you would use the word Noel. But the English probably borrowed it a long time ago, and they incorporated it into their Christmas culture as well. And so for the background of the First Noel is that it is indeed an English carol, and it was part of a Yule log tradition that the English had. So the Yule log, there's a couple of different opinions on how this whole thing works, but one was they take a log and they would hollow it out and they'd fill it with spices, and they would put it in the fire on Christmas Eve, and they would see if they can get it to burn. It would fill the house with nice aromas. Another way they would do it is they would take an entire tree and take the branches off and put it in the fire. And then they would try to get it to burn all 12 nights of Christmas, so starting Christmas Eve. But the key was the peasant children in peasant homes would, when they first lit the Yule log, which is a big deal, they would start singing the First Noel. And, I think it's interesting and really fascinating that this carol doesn't have a culture background like other Christmas songs. It's a folk song, and it really came from the people, from the peasants even. And sure, some of the words are a little extra biblical. Like it says, cold winter's night at some point. We don't know if it was cold or winter when Jesus was born. The Bible doesn't actually say. Later it says the shepherds would follow the star. The shepherds didn't follow the star in the Bible. They actually were told right where to go. It was the wise men who followed the star. But the history of this song is perfectly fitting, about an angel announcing Jesus' birth, not to aristocrats, not to kings or priests or royalty or Bible scholars for that matter, but about angels announcing the birth of a king to shepherds, dirty animal keepers who lived in fields and smelled like the sheep and really were considered unimportant people. Luke 2, verses 8 to 9 tells us, and there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. I can imagine anyone could be terrified at the sight of an angel. And the angel delivers not some devastating message to them, but an invitation. Not just that the Savior was born, but that they should go and see it themselves. And then soon the entire sky is filled with angels just praising God for this moment in time when all of history is about to change as Jesus is born. And so the shepherds, it says in Luke, that they hurried to go and see Mary and Joseph and the baby. God announced the birth of his son, the King of Kings, to the people who were low on the social status ladder, the last group of unimportant people that we would ever expect, right? And this would go on to describe Jesus' whole life and mission. Jesus, he spent his time with and ate with and hung out with tax collectors and the poor and the prostitutes and disadvantaged and despised and the sick, the socially outcast. And he pushed his disciples to think of and to go to these people first and to invite them to their parties and to treat them with kindness and respect, things that other people in their culture just simply weren't doing. And perhaps this song is a challenge to us this Christmas and New Year, to not just stay in our comfort zones, where we only spend time with people who we like and people who are like us, or people who maybe are wealthier than us, or maybe people have something to give us, but to intentionally put ourselves in places where we can serve others, whom the rest of our society has written off, to the struggling mom, to the family that's swimming in dysfunction, and maybe we can step in and help in some way, to the person who just lost their house or is about to the drug addict who needs someone to give them support and accountability, and the many others. Like, what are ways that we can help them and bring good news of great joy to those who really need peace and hope? What seemingly unimportant person can you show and speak about Jesus' love to this season and this coming year?
First Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay.